Dphog, a few basic tips to get along better with your designers, your fashion editors, and get more out of your photographs. Hey dphog, today I want to go through something that is quite basic but essential, and that is the rhythm of your shoot, the flow of your editorial. Now, in a nutshell, basically what that's about is entertaining the eye, coming close and going far. When do you shoot full length and when do you shoot close-up details? So in this example, basically a client will come to you with a brief for the shoot, and most of the time that brief will have to bear in mind how it is going to be used and laid out in the publication. So your titles, your text, your story, all of that type of thing has to be taken into consideration. So when taking that into consideration, what you have to realize is that any 2 pages are seen as a unit. And whether it's a single landscape format image or whether it's 2 portrait format images, just bear in mind it's a unit. And this is the beginning of understanding flow in a publication. So the first concept is DPS. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the terminology, double page spread. So what that means is a single photograph that's going to lie across 2 pages. Mostly this concept is used for titling. Your magazine will ask you to shoot an opening DPS, which will be the first photograph of an article. In this example over here, we've used the beautiful Dion and the fish tank on the left hand side. It's bright, it's colorful, it's enticing, she's beautiful. It's a good solid beauty shot with lots of space on the left hand side for your opening titles in your page. Job done, that's your DPS. You need to plan your shot specifically so that the actual image almost falls on 1 page and half of your image is sort of left blank and clean as a slate for the titles and the text. A handy tip when you are considering all of these aspects of your composition and your rules and where they're moving to is that think about when you open a publication up, the outside areas of each page are the prime spaces. The gutters in the middle are the least seen spaces on the page. That's why they generally put your credits in those little spaces over there. And the outside left of the left-hand page and right of the right-hand page is prime position. So bear that in mind when you're composing. If you're trying to impress a magazine editor or someone that's going to give your career a boost, keep that one in mind. After that concept, what we'll move on to is the idea of flow within the editorial. So what happens with that is on 1 page, if you have a shot that's a little bit wider or a full-length photograph, a lot of the time what will happen is that the editor will want an image on the next page that is slightly closer, so that the flow goes from far to close, to far to close, to far to close. So the lesson herein is, besides evolving your own work and experimenting with these concepts of flow, essentially what you're doing is manipulating the energy and the emotion of the shoot. When you go slightly wider, you're telling a little bit more of a story of possibly the environment or the space, whether you're using negative space or whether there are details that take the story further forward. It's all about how you translate the emotion and the energy of the shoot. They are really basic concepts, but they'll serve your editorial storytelling well on your next shoot when you keep it in mind. When you've got something that potentially contains a lot of emotion, you might be better off getting into the mindset of coming in closer and condensing that emotion on the page. So that'll be your tighter shot. One of the very important aspects when you are creating flow in an editorial, in the context that we're talking in over here about close shots, far shots, and double page spreads, you always have to take into consideration where your subjects are facing and where they're walking to. And what this goes back to is when I talk to you about composition, a lot of the time it seems like boring old rules. It seems like stale old camera club type of mentality, but I always try to encourage people that you do need to learn the rules. And the reason why you have to learn the rules is so that you can forget the rules and so that you can break the rules. But within flow in an editorial, the rules are very, very important. A lot of the time, you need to allow your subjects to walk into a page and possibly not outside of a page. Remembering that this is commercial fashion, so we are not trying to make too much of an artist statement by maybe forcing someone into a corner. This is just gentle fashion editorial work. So your rules become quite important. Allow your subjects at least to breathe into the space. The other thing that happens with flow is how you light your editorial for flow. Now, a lot of the time that might mean that there is a bright light on the left-hand side of the page to lead the eye and allow people to walk and to move and to exist in that space. The last aspect that I want to go into within editorial flow and storytelling is the consideration of whether the people you are shooting are making eye contact with the camera or not. So they're two completely different concepts. When you make eye contact with the camera, you are breaking the fourth wall and you are changing story dynamic. Now, all that means is that, without being complicated about breaking the fourth wall, you can go and read up on it, but all that it means is that when people aren't making eye contact with the camera, you are voyeuristically observing a story. So once you've established the fact that there is no eye contact, you're allowing the audience to observe a story taking place. And when it comes to flow, a lot of the time you won't want to break out of that model. So as you'll see with this shoot, there's never eye contact with the camera. Sometimes, and again, rules are always meant to be broken, and it will work sometimes that you can play with those two concepts. But generally, if you keep that in mind, once you've made eye contact, keep eye contact. Or if you decide to not make eye contact because it serves the story better from a voyeuristic perspective, then try and stick with that through your story, and you'll see that the thread does become stronger in your editorial. So dphog, these are just a few guidelines which maybe you weren't aware of before when you consider compositional elements and how you construct a photograph. But I think if you keep these in mind, if this is what you're aiming at, to impress someone in the rag trade, then good luck with that one, and we will see you soon. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't yet, and back with Classroom next week.